everyone. Really excited to be here, and just excited to have our guest as well sharing what's next and really what's happening in the world of artificial intelligence. And we're going to try to give you as much applied content as possible, minus the hype, and keep it very focused about how you can actually be productive too. First, I'd like to welcome Bivin Varghese, Head of Tech Mahindra Ireland, Anton Kesnavrov from Head of Uber, and we've also got Lee Sexton from Presidio, and we've got Veronica Green from Vesta Insights. So, very welcome to you all. Bivin, if I start with yourself, with your role at Tech Mahindra, tell us about some of the applications that customers are getting the most value from.
Sure, and thank you for the question. It's delighted to be here amidst the audience. What a vibe, things. At Tech Mahindra, we are starting to see continued momentum in AI, and interestingly also the focus on data management. And there are a few areas where we are seeing the most traction and use cases, which would be around experiences, which would be customer experience, employee experience. Second would be productivity. Third, if I have to say, around content management and insights, or the ability to get summarized insights. And the last would be the fourth could be creativity. And how we are helping some of our clients. We have to date created 60+ use cases, which are applicable to global clients across industries. And that's how we're working with our clients on AI adoption.
So you've got that customer experience, and then you've got the employee experience. And we know that last year, 23.4 billion euro was invested into generative AI, which is an incredible amount of money. Tell us about some of the use cases that maybe stand out to you that are exciting, where customers are generating real value from.
Sure, absolutely. I think if you have to look at customer and employee, from an employee experience perspective, we've seen a lot of clients deploy AI-based or Gen AI-based bots on top of their enterprise data. So employees asking for details around their policy, travel, whatnot, and the ability to get personalized insight based on your role, based on your grade, based on your geography, based on very particular on your question. And then on the customer experience side, we've seen tremendous benefits around case summarization. Just the call center agents, when they take calls, a lot of their time, which they don't want to spend, is around summarizing a call or figuring out the last conversations, trying to get insights. So both have been extreme delight factors for our customers.
Anton, you've done, and your team at Uber have done AI at scale. So I'm guessing you've learned a few things from that. Tell us about some of the use cases that have added the most value to your either internal customers or external customers.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I can talk about maybe two use cases here. One is more traditional machine learning, and one is more like Gen AI LLM based. For traditional one of the examples I like to bring up is that Uber has a model for ETA prediction, like essentially, when your cab is going to arrive or when your food's going to be delivered. And historically, in the past, before resurgence of deep learning, it used to be a lot of smaller tree-based models. Essentially, for every city or geography, you would have a separate model that only works there. And Uber operates at 10,000 cities, I think, today, which means you have thousands of models, which is very difficult to operate at scale, since you need to retrain them constantly, monitor them, and whatnot. It's very difficult, doable, very difficult. However, with the deep learning, since it came into picture a few years ago, we were able to train a model that worked worldwide, essentially for any city, and without accuracy degradation. I think it was even a little more accurate. And this way, you go from having thousands of models in production for this particular use case to just one, which operationally, of course, simplifies things significantly. That's one of more traditional examples. One of the more recent, maybe Gen AI things is what I found interesting is the team built an agent powered by Gen AI to do mobile application testing. Because Uber app, it's kind of complicated in a way that it's available in many cities, many different legislations. There are many products there. And almost no one really knows all of it, right? Because it's worldwide. So it's very difficult to centralize the testing of such things. And so I'm based in the Netherlands. When you order a cab there, it always asks you like, hey, for some legal reason, this cab is driven by a driver. Are you okay with this? Uber doesn't own the car, and you have to press OK, right? And there are like many similar things in different capacities in different cities. So when you have more general Gen AI agent, and you want it to test, getting a trip, it can go through these things. It can understand what's on the screen, and it understands, okay, to get the trip, I need to press OK, even though it never knew that it's going to happen. So I think this kind of makes it easier to test the application at scale, and I think it's a great internal use case.
Thank you. Lee, very few companies have got the engineering capability of a company like Uber, or like the different types of use cases at scale like that. Bringing it down to more of a granular level, how are you helping customers utilize AI applications, generative AI applications? What type of problems are you helping them to solve? And what does productivity, or what does good actually look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think very similar to what Bivin mentioned earlier on. Clients are looking at, I'm going to say the low-hanging fruit, the customer experience journey. They're looking at how they can actually improve that productivity around those particular journeys. They're very good starting points because the data and the data points in there are quite preset. From a contact center point of view, the data is quite clean. It's effectively Q&A questions, and then obviously machine learning on top of it to get better. And again, we can help people implement that machine learning and to get that productivity in place. A lot of customers just don't have the foundations in place, to be very honest with you. So we talk a lot about people wanting to jump onto the AI bandwagon. What we find is that when you actually sort of dig under the hood, data's a little bit scattered around. It's not particularly structured. It's not necessarily known who owns it and why. So again, a lot of it just comes down to sort of working out how to sort of organize that particular data, clean that data up, build the right tooling and tool sets, ingress points and egress points and ingestion, and get all that into one place. I think once you've actually got clients to understand what data they need and where they need to get it, it starts to work. And then we've got clients that really are using it effectively, where they've got data they've got already to make decisions, but then they've gone, actually, I can pull in any data I want from anywhere as long as it's right and true, and use that and ingest that in to improve my models and improve my actual scores and stuff. So again, it's just that opening the eye to saying, if you understand the ingestion of data and what you're doing with that data, you can actually bring in a vast amount of data you don't even have to help make you better decisions, just based on forecastings. Yep.
Veronica, we've had the EU AI Act. It's now passed. It's coming down the track. We've got prohibitive AI going to be removed within 6 months, and then we've got a 12, 18-month roadmap. And suddenly, we've got a legislation that's going to make GDPR look very, very small, that very few companies got AI policies for. 30% of employees are shadow ChatGPT users. It feels like innovation regulation is going to come together. What advice would you share for introducing explainable AI?
Yeah, I really think explainable AI is going to be the bridge between the legislations that are coming on downstream and innovation. And I'd also like to highlight explainable AI isn't just a technical piece. I've went around to a lot of the stalls here over the last couple of days, and a lot of people have said, oh yeah, we have an XAI component. But it's not just a technical piece. There is a piece about user understanding. So in the literature and in the research area, there are multiple different stakeholders for XAI. There are the regulators, there are the affected parties. So in finance, they're your customers. In the medical area, they're your patients. There are the developers, the people who actually build the models, and then there are also the deployers, the people who are responsible. So each of those people need different explanations. So for example, if you were going to give an explanation to a developer, that's a technical explanation. They will want to know things about the accuracy scores, the F scores, what features, how did you do the feature engineering. But if you're going to a deployer, someone who's responsible, we'll say in a bank, that's not the explanation they want to know. They want to know, how's that going to affect my bottom line? What features did you use? Were there any customer-related features? So the ability to be transparent in a model is not just the answer. You then need to understand who are the people that are engaging with that, and what do they actually need to know. And I think once you begin to understand that, the control process around that will become much more transparent. And the key for me is the use of explainable AI.
Bivin, for all the opportunities of Gen AI and AI, we've got 10% adoption across enterprise, vast majority of research, focus mostly on internal projects rather than external projects. What's the gap? Why aren't we here faster?
Sure, like you rightly stated, we see an increased adoption of AI and a lot of clients wanting to get to the AI project without a lot of deliberation and thought. And we see continued investments of in-house teams in companies starting to build their own AI system. But a couple of reasons why the adoption rate has been low. Firstly, those teams are unable to scale beyond a POC or a proof of value. Right? They're able to get to that sooner, but beyond that, scaling to a larger scaled implementation becomes a challenge. And part of the reason is also not everyone understands the difference between RPA, AI, and Gen AI. It's almost like Gen AI and large language models used to, or rather force-fitted into. It's almost like using a sword to cut an apple. Can you cut it? Absolutely, yes. But do you need a sword? No.
Anton, we've got Waymo in the US, 50,000 rides per week, this autonomous taxi, safer statistically. Still, we've got some kind of queries about what's going to happen with the regulation, but we've got San Francisco, we've got Austin, Phoenix, and soon to be Los Angeles. Uber have obviously stayed out of this market. Where do you see the autonomous vehicles going? Because we had 1.35 million people die on our roads last year globally. It's an issue that we need to solve, and people are starting to feel more comfortable on the roads with a car that's got no driver.
Yeah, that's a great question that's being asked now, for Uber. I think, so you mentioned 50,000 trips. So there were, I guess, 4 times than that Uber did since we started talking. So the scale is still very different. But I think what Uber does now, it's trying to provide a market for all these companies. So for example, if you're in San Francisco and if you order Uber, there's a chance that Waymo is going to come pick you up. So I think that's kind of where the company is at the moment, where it allows all these potentially new players in self-driving to not invest into operations, market building apps, all these things, but instead it's like a win-win situation where Uber receives more cars on the road and the providers receives the marketed customers for them. So that's kind of where the Uber is at the moment.
Lee, for some people, taking Excel out of their grip, they might as well be closer to dead because they're not handing over Excel and they just don't want to move away from it. How do you, from an organizational change perspective, help to show the possibilities, but then get them primed and ready to start to utilize it rather than, I suppose, acting as that change agent with an organization?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've had clients in the past who, I guess you can say, have been wedded on Excel. Ran very successful businesses on Excel. I think a lot of it comes down to there's 2 ways of doing it effectively. There is you kind of do the design sprint ideas, where you run, again, it's a POC, POV kind of idea that Bivin mentioned, where you run through a use case, basically. So you look at what they're trying to do inside, and I mean, I've seen some very complex spreadsheets out there written with Python and all sorts of things over it, and really, really gnarly stuff. If you look into those particular things, what you're trying to do with it, okay, let's take that ingested data, let's take that data and put it here. And you can very quickly demonstrate the value of speed and ease of saying, I can take that data now, put it here, you've got it instantly, and actually any user can use it. You don't need to understand Python scripts. You don't need to be able to understand what's been sort of embedded into that Excel document. So again, there's that kind of gentle journey out of there. It comes back to, I think, what Bivin mentioned before about the clients not adopting it in larger scale. It's similar to these sort of scenarios here. It's all the foundations. It's basically, unless they've got the right foundations in place, these sort of POCs are just POCs. You can't really go beyond it, because again, you need all of that data sources to be put somewhere to quickly scale it out. I certainly worked with a client in the past where we did just that. We literally demonstrated, it's a big question about should we, shouldn't we? And we were able to demonstrate a big chunk of it within a couple of weeks. Obviously, that's not industrialized, it's not moved forwards, but again, the ability to sort of say, hey, I can spin something up in the cloud, I can take this data you've got, and I can make your spreadsheet look like this. And I think it's just that the all statement. You have to take them there, because they don't believe it yet. They've got to see it to believe it, which is understandable.
Veronica, if we think about it, some of these large language models, and the majority of people are going to know Gemini or ChatGPT, they've got over 175 billion parameters. So you need large server farms, high cost, energy. It's kind of like going around on your car around the planet 5 times. Talk to me about the benefits of small language models and some of the applications that we're starting to see, which seem to be more cost effective, smarter, slicker data set, more secure, and there seems to be more of a kind of a focus on these.
Yeah, I think large language models are really useful for general information or just drafting documents, we'll say, for simple business use. But if there's any key element of your business that you're looking to get supported with via a chatbot, a small language model where you really limit the amount of information that's in there to the critical information that is useful to the given problem, then you get a much better quality of interaction back. And I have a startup with Vesta Insights, and what we're doing is we're predicting mortgage arrears, and we're using explainable AI. So we have, at the moment, 10 different machine learning models where we are predicting different classes of arrears. We have a suite of machine learning techniques, explainable AI techniques, that looks to tell us precisely what is actually causing those arrears, what are the features and what are the feature ranges. And the next step that we're looking to do now is we're looking to convert that to text, to create a small language model so that they can interact with an underwriter or a head of credit on a very specific, very tailored set of information that we will stand over the content. And I think that will improve the quality of the recommendations and the interactions and ultimately the decision making, which is really where all this is going.
Bivin, the importance of defining a problem well and actually figuring out, is it worth solving? Because there's a lot of wouldn't it be cool snare projects. Talk to me about the confidence to actually say to the customer, you actually don't need AI for that, you're going to over-engineer it. I know your decision makers are going to be upset about that. And then starting small and then picking the right use cases to really actually add value and then build from there.
Sure, and Mark, some of these discussions don't go really well because you're often brought into the meetings or brought into the discussion with clients who have already made up their mind, or some senior person in the boardroom discussion have figured out a budget for a Gen AI project. So they already are in a mode to get started on a Gen AI, and when you get to the discussion about use cases and then helping them navigate and understand if it requires, if it's an AI problem or a Gen AI, an RPA, it's a difficult conversation to navigate because they're often heartbroken and heartaches happen, but we continue to emphasize on that because even in the context of language models, right? Large language models, it's also becoming a trend. Larger companies who can afford, they're investing into large language models, and we work with a lot of pharmaceutical companies, and use cases like drug discovery, it makes sense, but large language models comes with cost. There is a risk of security and privacy. There's a cost associated with compute and subscription. And then there is also an element of hallucination. So it's to navigate them to a custom model or a small model is a task, but I think we all have to stick to that and really stick to the use case.
Spending time in the market, I got asked 2 questions consistently. Question 1, is AI going to take my job? Question 2, how can you make me more productive? Lee, where do you stand on both questions?
I think, first of all, the AI, is it going to take my job? No, it's not. It's going to make your job a lot easier. It's going to make you look a lot better. Using AI is a real great productivity tool. I'm pretty sure everybody on this stage uses AI themselves just to help them get stuff done in the day quicker. So I would say don't fear it. I was hoping to turn up today with a Terminator t-shirt, but it didn't turn up in time. Don't fear AI, basically. I would say just get there, start using it, look at how it can enhance what you do. But again, do that cautiously. You have to be very careful what you ask it, how you ask it, and what you tell it. So treat it like a stranger danger, as they used to say back in the day. But yeah, it's not going to do that at all. Not going to take your job.
Same question to yourself, Veronica.
I'd say it depends on your job, to be honest. So I think, yeah, certainly some of the more manual-related roles, I think they will be automated. But what I do think is it will bring in new roles. So I don't think it will reduce, we'll say, the employment population, but what it will create is, we'll say, solution architects, prompt engineers, all of these around, we'll say, Gen AI. Those roles weren't available 3 years ago, but we'll say with the traditional customer service person will probably be an agent in 5 years' time, or at least largely. So yeah, so I'd say it kind of depends on who you are.
Anton, I'm currently writing a book called AI Less Stupid, and I'm basically trying to work out all the bad pieces of advice that's going out there. Tell us a little bit about the best piece of advice you'd give to your younger self if you were to go on that AI journey again.
Yeah, I think what's important these days, and it kind of, I guess, agrees with other panelists, is like Gen AI is very hyped right now. It's new, there's a lot of exciting applications, but I think it's important, if you want to be serious about the area, to also learn what came before. Because in many cases, Gen AI isn't the best tool for the job, or it works, but it's too expensive. And turns out, there are models around for 30, 40 years that just do the same thing, and they essentially don't cost anything. So knowing all the variety of tools you may have as like data scientist or engineer, and then the ability to pick the right one for the job, I think that's a very important skill these days.
Bivin, we had incredible introductions last week from Google and OpenAI and some of the agent applications and what's happening with multimodal generative AI. Like literally, it was incredible applications. Where do you see the future of AI going? And you've got 10 seconds to answer.
It's incredible. If I have 10 seconds, I would say incredible twice. But AI or Gen AI laid on top of a well-governed data, that's what will create magic.
Brilliant. Anton, back to you. The question, where do you think it's going? You got 15 seconds to answer.
I think it's going to keep developing. Like, there's so much smart people working on new research, new technologies, new models. Something new comes out almost every week, right? So got to stay on top of it. So I think it's going to keep growing, going to keep developing. And yeah, the more variety of what can be applied, the better.
Wonderful. Lee, same question?
Yeah, I think it's treat it as a modern electricity. It's just going to keep spinning off more and more things that are going to make our lives better, effectively. So yeah, it's just the beginnings. It's the starting points. It will get much more exciting going through. And yeah, I think as Bivin said, once you've got the right data and the right models, it's just going to be brilliant.
Yeah. From a digital dexterity perspective, it's very, very important for us all to go on this journey, Veronica. Tell us where you see it playing out over the years to come.
I see over the next, I'll say, 5 or 10 years, the idea of responsible AI and how to trust AI will become even more prevalent. And I think even throughout in business, all the way through to education. So the concepts of how we audit, how we manage, how we legislate, I think they will ultimately shape how society operates in business and in education, which will be led by AI.
So hopefully that's been food for thought in terms of some of the applications about artificial intelligence and where the market's potentially going. My advice is if you're working in the world of AI, continue to have conversations with people outside of your organization, partner with small startups, or work with some larger organizations to see if you can come up with some POCs and productionize AI to actually bring to the market. But my best piece of advice, if you don't know much about AI, stick AI into YouTube with the job title that you currently have, spend 5 minutes on this every day, and you will learn an awful lot about the opportunities for AI. And we are finished and done, so thank you very much for today's panel.